Jinfri had that same feeling again. Even though he was seeing this spectacle for the first time, he felt a strange nostalgia. If you think about it, this is not the first time the guy has had this feeling. Jinfri had encountered him often and didn't even know how many times it was. He felt as if he had been living here since birth. The voice addressed Jinfri Vanrage, pulling him out of his thoughts. The girl apologized for the wait and asked if he had come to register with the guild. The guy immediately nodded, answering that everything was correct. Looking at the girl's face, Jinfri had the feeling that he had seen her before. The girl smiled and said that everything was ready and the guy could see his window. A window appeared in front of Jinfri, indicating that he needed to wave his right hand to authenticate. Seeing this, the guy again felt a strange feeling of déjà vu. Suddenly, he realized that he remembered everything. The girl asked Mr. Van Ray if everything was okay. A bunch of memories of exploring this world immediately flashed before Jenfrey's eyes. This place is a game he played all the time. He was even considered a professional. This was the world of the game Grand 7. Adventurers travel across 7 continents to achieve peace between countries. Online game in the style of a fantasy kingdom, that's where it is. The guy immediately panicked. He didn't believe it and didn't understand what was happening. Why did these memories decide to appear right now? He's an ordinary young man who dreamed of becoming an adventurer. He came here for the money to feed his family. But the world in which the boy was born and raised turned out to be a game that he had to play in a past life. A moment later, Jenfrey decided that this was a golden opportunity. The girl again asked if everything was okay with the guy, noting that he was shaking all over. Jenfrey only apologized for making her worry. He assured that he was simply burning with impatience, although deep down he was painfully shocked by what was happening. The boy didn't understand why his memories were awakened now. He couldn't find the answer no matter how much he thought about it, but if he used this knowledge, he could rise high. As she said goodbye, the girl just smiled and wished Jenfrey a safe journey. After passing through the portal, the guy found himself in the baptismal altar. He froze for a second, looking at the view that opened up, which looked just like a location from the game. This is usually where 5 new adventurers gather, while all the events from the game are repeated. But for now, Jenfrey needs to remember that this is his reality, and he doesn't have an autosave feature. If he dies, he won't be resurrected. But if a guy uses these memories wisely, he can become a real adventurer. The voice announced that the baptism ceremony would begin in 3 minutes and asked everyone to prepare their weapons. Jenfrey noted that the game was the same. The man rushed forward, warning everyone to select their weapons in order of priority. The woman and the man grabbed the guard's spear together and began to fight for the weapon. Another guy has his eye on a red sword. Another one, flying up to him like a bullet, declared that the sword was his. Jenfrey watched this bacchanalia, noting that it was the same every time. It was a system of forced choice of professions. At baptism, you are given a choice of professions to learn. However, this list is limited. The newbies were foaming at the mouth trying to get something imby for themselves. The guy tried to approach the choice of profession responsibly. The man apologized for the fact that the best part went to him. Looking at the weapons, Jenfrey wondered what he should choose. He noticed an ordinary dagger. The man laughed at the fact that the guy wanted to choose a dagger with the power of 1 in attack and warned him not to regret his choice later. Of course, a sane adventurer would hardly take such a weapon, but Jenfrey stated that in this world, the concept of common sense was distorted. The opinions of ordinary extras do not apply to real people, and that is why he will choose an ordinary dagger. The voice announced the beginning of the baptism ceremony. The assembled group had 5 minutes to kill as many monsters as possible. This type of monster appeared only in the altar location, Honey Centipede. Their venom can paralyze a person. The man approached the boy, asking the kid to try not to die. Jenfrey didn't understand what he had done to him and decided that he would ignore the man. The gong rang, and the monsters rushed to attack. The guy noted that the creatures behave exactly the same as in the game. This means that their weaknesses have not changed either. The monster lunged at Jenfrey, but he warned him not to underestimate it. Taking out a dagger, the guy rushed at the monster. A moment later, the system announced that the honey centipede had been defeated. The rest of the guys were shocked by what they saw. It was a direct hit on target. The man praised the guy, but he did not understand how he managed to defeat her with 1 blow. Every game has a bug, and this is no exception, although it only works in this location. If you hit a honey centipede in the weak spot with a regular dagger, it will die in 1 hit. The same bug was in the game itself, and only the guy knows about it. The others also rushed into battle. There was only one thought in their heads. They had to kill at least someone. The man swung his spear, and the system announced that the honey centipede had been defeated. He was incredibly proud of being a swordsman. Jenfrey didn't think it was a good place to shout, as the man would only draw attention to himself. Besides, it wasn't a popular profession among players. Lost in thought, the guy didn't notice the monster flying at him and managed to dodge only at the last moment. Jenfrey noted that it is much more fun here than in the game. Seeing the monster decide to strike him in the back, the guy immediately reacted by striking back. Another honey centipede has been defeated. A voice announced that the ceremony had come to an end. As a result of baptism, they will be given a profession that suits their their skills. The guy was upset that he could only kill 7. Now he won't get a good profession. One of them failed to kill anyone at all, which is why he failed to register. The man was glad that he was able to kill 15 enemies. Now he would be able to become a swordsman. Looking at Jinfri, he asked what his result was. Seeing the guy's table, the man froze in surprise. It turns out that Jinfri killed as many as 33 monsters, which is why any profession is now available to him. Turning around, the man decided that he had done well too, because he could become a swordsman after all. Jinfri noted that with 15 kills, the probability of this profession appearing was only 2%, so he was very lucky. In this game, the most powerful professions are swordsman and summoner. After a few moments of thought, Jinfri finally tapped the screen. As it turned out, the guy chose the profession of potion maker. Everyone was shocked by this choice. The man even asked if he was an idiot. He didn't understand how it was possible to choose a potion maker with such a list. Jinfri believed that this stupid profession would only be revealed in the hands of an experienced player. The guy thought that something should have fallen out for him. It wasn't for nothing that he killed 33 monsters. Jinfri looked carefully at his inventory because these items can only be obtained in this location. Honey centipede sting, 4 pieces, honey centipede wing, 5 pieces, 2 vials with honey centipede blood, and 1 regular dagger. In addition to his profession, Jinfri received the ability to synthesize. He specifically chose this profession to get the opportunity to create a weapon that can destroy this world. The synthesis was completed, and Jinfri received the centipede weapon. An adventurer's strength is determined by his profession and level. Equipment is just a tool used for defense and attack. However, in this world, there are also special types of equipment that show their power regardless of your profession and level. Among pro players, such specimens were nicknamed hidden weapons. Jinfri got to the first continent, the city of new adventurers, Logobigin. The guy was glad that he finally reached the first continent, noting that everything was the same here. Jinfri had already received a profession and created a weapon. Now he needed to think of a plan for further action. The goal of this game is extremely simple. Each continent has S-class dungeons. The player's task is to kill all the bosses on the 7 continents. But for this, the boy had to become stronger. He decided that it was time for him to go to the dungeon. Dungeons are also divided into ranks. Everyone starts their passage from the lowest, rank F, but the guy decided to enter a dungeon of rank C. The conditions of the cleanup were the destruction of the main boss. The system warned that the guy would not be able to leave the dungeon until he fulfilled the cleanup conditions. The recommended level for clearing a C-rank dungeon ranges from 17 to 30. There's nothing for a beginner to do here. Jinfri decided to see if it was really that dangerous here. A level 17 devil plant immediately appeared on his path. The guy immediately summoned his weapon. Of course, the difference of 16 levels was a little scary. However, he was confident that he would kill the monster with the first blow. The devilish plant immediately rushed to attack. Jinfri noted that he was fast, but he already knew all the monster's attacks by heart, and his weak spot was precisely in the bud. The system notified that the guy had delivered a precise blow to the devil plant's vulnerable points. The perception skill had worked. The devil plant had been defeated. Jinfri's level was raised to level 10. Thanks to the murder of the devil plant, he leveled up quite a bit. The guy noted that it was even a bit too fast. In this game, health points and mana points increase automatically with each level. For each new level, you get 5 status points. Since the guy had enough strength, he decided to pump everything into defense. Jinfri has increased both his level and stats, all thanks to his weapons. The centipede has the perception skill. His weapon's attack power was currently 66, so he would be able to clear a B-rank dungeon without any problem. But the weapon's true potential would only be revealed with time. Jinfri couldn't wait for that moment. He decided that since it was too early for him to go to the boss, he would continue to level up. As a result, the guy was surrounded by noir snakes of the 23rd and 24th levels, a mid-level monster of Dungeon C. The chance of encountering 3 snakes is only 1%. The monster instantly rushed to attack the enemy. Having dodged, the guy noticed that the snakes were still just as fierce. Jinfri again barely managed to dodge the monster's new attack. The guy forced himself to pull himself together and not give in to panic. He's already fought against them, so he already knows their weak points. There is a soft tissue in the neck area. If you pierce it, the enemy will be hit 3 times. However, when Jinfri tried to attack one snake, another blocked his path. The guy didn't expect the monster to rush to defend his friend. At this time, the 3rd snake took advantage of the enemy's confusion and sank its fangs into his shoulder. Jinfri immediately slashed with his blade, cutting off the snake's head. Thanks to this, the guy was able to increase his level to 13. As expected, one bite took away almost all of Jinfri's HP. However, the guy foresaw this situation. It wasn't for nothing that he pumped all his points into defense at level 10. Even though almost all of his HP was taken away, he didn't die. Jinfri was able to create all the conditions for activating the second skill of the centipede. The second skill was Divine Speed, which increased agility by 10 times when the user was on the verge of death. Both beasts were immediately defeated by Jinfri. The guy just apologized, saying he wasn't going to just die. His level went up to 17. Jinfri noted that he had leveled up quite well, even though he had almost died. It would be nice for him to restore his health, but then the skill would stop working. It would be sad to refuse such a tasty bonus. He thought he could hold out for a while. However, Jinfri knew that it was no longer worth the risk. The monster barely had time to open its mouth when the guy flew past it like a bullet. The defeated enemy immediately fell to the ground like a stone. With this skill, killing monsters became even easier for the guy. It was not for nothing that he activated it. Now Jinfri's leveling will go faster. After killing the boss, he will be able to apply the new synthesis. For this, the guy will need water, thorny grass, a large bunch of blueberries, a caterpillar, skull jelly leaves, a blood flower, and a chestnut seed. Synthesizing a D-rank item requires a lot of ingredients. The guy had the impression that he was cooking something from real life. Such aspects spoiled all the fun for him. Eventually, Jinfri decided that grumbling wouldn't help matters. He needed to have time to collect everything before meeting with the boss. Having picked the blueberries, the guy noted that the work was going quickly. Suddenly, Jinfri heard someone calling his name. Turning around, the boy recognized the man as a resident of his village. He noted that at first he did not believe that the loser Jinfri had become an adventurer. Julius became an adventurer 2 to 3 years ago, so the boy found it strange that he was still walking around such dungeons. The man thought it was very funny that the boy chose the profession of a potion maker. Julius added that the guy's weapon was also so-so. The man's companion asked who he was. He replied that he had known Jinfri since childhood. His family was the poorest in their village and told him not to pay attention because the guy had always been strange. Jinfri's father died long ago and his mother is bedridden. The guy didn't understand why he met Julius. Jinfri's father died when he was young, and his mother is still looked after by his younger sister. He became an adventurer to earn money. Julius was unhappy that the boy did not listen to them. He reminded them that he had not been beaten for a long time. Jinfri didn't know what to do with the man. Suddenly, a loud roar broke the silence. Julius's companion looked ahead in fear, unable to say a word. A level 31 Cyclops boss appeared in front of them. Julius immediately declared that they needed to run away from here and did not understand why the guy was standing. Jinfri realized that the boy had already become Cyclops' target. No one even had time to react when the boss raised his weapon and struck. The guy was knocked down with just one blow. Cyclops' skill was the all-seeing eye. Fighting the boss with such a difference in levels is extremely dangerous. His defense is too strong. Jinfri understood that if he did not hurry, he would repeat the fate of that guy. The guy hurried to hide before the boss noticed him. In addition, the Cyclops has a skill in which he focuses on only one target. Unfortunately, Jinfri was unable to take cover and became that very target. The guy realized that he had no other choice. Jinfri knew all his movements, and thanks to his divine speed, he could dodge the enemy's attacks. Julius watched what was happening with surprise. He didn't believe that the guy in front of him was definitely Jinfri. The guy understood that he wouldn't defeat the boss by running away alone. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Jinfri jumped onto the monster's club. Cyclops tried to grab the guy in his fist, but he managed to jump up. For a moment, the monster froze, surprised by what had happened. The guy decided that he needed to act now, while the Cyclops mech was open. Jinfri realized that all his fears had been confirmed. The blow did not cause any damage to the monster. However, Cyclops reacted to the blow, trying to get rid of the enemy. Jinfri managed to avoid the attack, jumping off the monster. It was hard for the guy to fight with such a difference in levels. Julius continued to hide at this time, watching Jinfri from the bushes. He noted that the guy was too fast and decided that he had some kind of buff on him. Jinfri knew he couldn't create it this way. He already has a large blueberry cluster, thorny grass, and blood flower. They can be found nearby. If it weren't for the boss, he would have gotten them long ago. Looking towards Julius, the boy realized that all the necessary ingredients were next to him. The man became scared when he saw Jinfri running towards him. The guy quickly ran past Julius, collecting the necessary items along the way. He only had one last ingredient left: water. Jinfri ran into the lake, having obtained the last necessary item. Without wasting time, the guy immediately used synthesis. He created a rank E poison. Once it enters the body, a person's health will gradually decrease with each passing second. Julius immediately rushed to remind the guy that the Cyclops has a high resistance to poisons. Adding that such a low-ranking poison would not work on him, Jinfri calmly replied that he knew. The guy used the spinal fluid of the snake Noir. His goal was to synthesize a common poison with it. Thanks to this, Jinfri created a potent poison. Julius was shocked that the guy synthesized the same item twice. However, that was not all, and Jinfri used synthesis again. The centipede received a poisonous attribute. This was the true power of his weapon. Julius was still in shock that the guy had synthesized the poison 3 times and gotten a new attribute. While the man was busy watching Jinfri, Cyclops managed to sneak up from behind. The guy calmly apologized to the thug for the wait and suggested a second round. Cyclops tried to strike, but thanks to his ability, Jinfri managed to constantly avoid being hit. The guy's body clearly remembered all the enemy's movements. Jinfri jumped up and delivered the finishing blow. The Cyclops has been inflicted with a severe poison status. Its health will decrease every second. The monster immediately roared loudly, causing the poison to be removed from the body. Jinfri warned that he would inflict poison with each hit. A moment later, the Cyclops was once again inflicted with the severe poison status. But the monster continued to remove the poison from its body. This went on several times. The guy would apply the status and Cyclops would remove the poison from the body. In the end, Jinfri decided that poisoning him was a good idea. Now he was ready to deliver the decisive blow. Taking aim, the guy aimed the dagger straight at the Cyclops' eye. Jinfri managed to land a precise blow to the monster's vulnerable point. The perception skill worked. The Cyclops was defeated, and the guy was awarded experience points. Julius couldn't believe his eyes. He doubted that this was exactly the Jinfri he knew. Julius immediately hurried to run away, asking not to kill him. However, Jinfri was only interested in his status now. The guy managed to raise his level to 23. He decided that as soon as he accumulated 90 status points, he would immediately distribute them. In the meantime, he looked into his inventory. He received 350,000 gold as a reward for defeating the dungeon boss, and a Cyclops fang was added to the inventory. Jinfri was happy that he got a lot of gold from the boss and decided that he would send half to his mother. The guy was very comfortable playing alone. He didn't have to share anything with anyone. However, what interested him most was what he had come here for, the Eye of the Cyclops. The guy noted that he certainly didn't look like much. He only had one last ingredient left, and he would be able to create a new weapon. Jinfri found himself in the Flat Plane, a D-rank dungeon. He finally died here. The guy remembered this dungeon very well. The player's main goal is to clear out high-ranking bosses on all continents. First, Jinfri had to deal with the first one. For this, the guy needed a new weapon, which is stored there. To solve the riddle of the fallen goddess, Jinfri needs the Eye of the Cyclops and one more item, which is what he came here for. And, of course, no one canceled training. To cleanse the world of all monsters, achieving a peaceful existence for people. Provide your family with everything they need. Jinfri promised that he would shut the mouth of anyone who previously did not believe in him when he became stronger. The guy will definitely achieve his goals. The voice suggested starting the day with them, the Adventurers Association. The main star would be a newbie who killed 33 monsters during the baptism, setting a new record. This event became the most discussed among other adventurers. According to the guild, this guy's name is Jinfri Vanraj. He has black hair and blue eyes, and he is currently in the Adventurers' starting town. The guy thought it was strange that he walked here all day but never met her. He collected a lot of materials, but did not find the Cobalt bird, although in the game they were not such rare creatures. There are 7 dungeons on each continent, starting from F rank and ending with A rank, and one more S rank, where the boss lives. Here in the D rank dungeon, these birds should live. Jinfri decided he had no choice but to find out about it in the city. The guy walked along the streets, remembering that there should be a store somewhere here. Having finally found what he was looking for, Jinfri was about to go inside, but was stopped by someone's voice from inside. The man told his companions to get lost. He pushed the guy to get out of the way. The men were rejoicing at their they'd catch. Jinfri assumed they were robbers. The man pushed the girl walking next to him so that she would knock it in the way. She almost flew down the steps, but Jinfri managed to catch the girl. He looked with displeasure after the departing bandits. Hugging her frightened daughter, the woman thanked the guy. She began to calm the girl down, assuring her that the bad guys had already left. The man standing nearby cursed these scum of the mountain hounds. The boy recognized the shop owner by his voice. He said that the mountain hounds were a new guild. They had raised the entire area under their control and were now demanding that the shop owners pay for their work. The man added that he had heard that they were responsible for the mass capture of Cobalt birds. Jinfri was shocked that he got the information he needed so quickly. The man added that the worst thing was that they had no sense of honor. They were ready to maim even children and women. At this rate, he would have to close his shop. Thinking about these mountain hounds, the boy decided that this was bad. The guild is a group of adventurers, and it can't stand up to such a number. causing harm to innocents, 10%, and poaching cobalt birds, 90%, added up to a frantic motivation to punch someone in the face. Jinfri clearly decided that he would not let them go just like that. The man bragged that he had stolen it from a local store. Another added that the master had said they needed to expand their reach. Jinfri was just convinced that this was indeed a guild of thieves. He wanted to find out where they kept the feathers of the cobalt bird. Among the carts with the rest of the cargo, the guy noticed exactly what he was looking for. Jinfri realized that it was because of them that he could not find a single bird. The men began discussing the latest news about the guy who killed 33 monsters. One of them said it was all a lie. Jinfri realized that there were too many of them and wondered what he should do. A voice was heard from behind the guy, asking what he was doing there. Jinfri assumed that they all had a thief profession. There is a special skill stealth given out there, so it is not surprising that he did not notice it. Jinfri tried to justify himself, but the guy didn't really believe him. He told that recently a guy from another guild was also wandering around and asked Jinfri to guess what happened to him. The robber snatched a dagger and tried to attack the guy. Jinfri noted that he was very fast and decided that nothing could be done. The guy hit the robber on the leg and knocked him to the ground. He grabbed his dagger and stabbed it into his neck with the hilt. The men standing around the corner didn't understand what was happening. Noticing the guy, they asked who he was. They assumed he was a new spy from another guild. Jinfri quickly assured them that this was not the case and that he did not want to fight them. He just wanted feathers. However, the dagger in his hand did not allow the men to believe his words. The robbers decided that he was following them and were afraid that their partner was dead. Jinfri realized that they wouldn't be able to have a conversation and would have to act the old-fashioned way. One of the robbers rushed at the guy, raising his weapon high. Jinfri managed to dodge, striking back at the face. The guy assumed that if he didn't deal with them quickly, reinforcements would arrive. He compared it to fighting alone against an angry mob, adding that it was annoying. Another robber tried to attack from behind, but the guy managed to duck. Another one wanted to strike with a spear, but Jinfri took the weapon away, striking back. The system notified that the guy had hit his opponent in a vulnerable spot and the perception skill had been activated. Jinfri apologized, thinking it had been too painful. In revenge for his comrade, the robber tried to hit the guy with an axe, but Jinfri managed to react again. In response, he struck him in the neck with the handle of the dagger. That's why the guy didn't want to fight with them. Looking around, he only grumbled that they had made too much of a mess, but he just needed the feathers of a cobalt bird. Jinfri spun around, blocking the bandit's attack with his dagger. The man admitted that not everyone can fight off his attack from behind. Jinfri decided that he had turned on the stealth skill again. He recognized the robber as the man who had pushed the girl. He introduced himself as the deputy head of the mountain hounds, Masuo, and asked if the boy had heard that name. Jinfri just shook his head, not understanding what was cool about that name. The man said that he remembered him because the guide blocked his path. Jinfri only noted that they steal so much goods but cannot buy normal items for themselves. The man looked like he wasn't even 20, but he noted that he fought well. He assumed that Jinfri had gotten lucky and gotten a cool weapon. The man added that the weapon is just a trinket. Everything depends on professional skills. Masuo added that just by looking at the guy, you can tell what profession he has chosen. After all, this basic clothing is given out when choosing the profession of potion maker. He added that the guy's class is so-so, of course, but his weapon is cool. The man assumed that this was the only reason he was still on his feet. He thought that Jinfri had never fought against adventurers before. Raising his hand, the man summoned several blades to himself and then pointed them towards the boy. However, Jinfri managed to deftly parry all the blows. Masuo stated that in these battles, the winner is the one who first finds out the opponent's profession. Since the guy only had synthesis as a skill, the man won in terms of physical strength. However, he believed that Jinfri didn't even know what his profession was. The guy assumed that he was a thief because he used the stealth skill. The bandit immediately objected that he was a summoner. Jinfri only smirked at the fact that he himself had blabbed everything. Fighting against thieves is quite unpleasant because they have the stealing skill. The guy will be offended if his centipede is taken away, so he decided that he couldn't delay at all. Jinfri jumped up, wanting to strike, but was distracted by his accomplices who appeared from behind. Apparently, they used stealth again because the guy didn't notice them. Jinfri barely managed to dodge the attack. In response to this, the guy again struck at the enemy's vulnerable point. He burst into a scream of pain that could be heard throughout the street. His comrades kept trying to bring the man to his senses, but he did not respond. Even his eyes turned pale. Jinfri only apologized, assuring that he didn't do it on purpose. However, the battle was not over yet. Jinfri warned that if they did not want to refuse on the spot of the defeated, they must immediately give him the feathers of the cobalt bird. The men were incredibly frightened and did not immediately understand what was required of them. One of the robbers was about to bring what was needed, but their other comrades arrived. They thought that Jinfri was a spy from another guild because he killed all their guys. The guy again rushed to assure everyone that this was not the case and that they had simply misunderstood everything. One of the robbers noted that in order to attack the mountain hounds, who need to have balls of steel, his comrade noticed the man lying foaming at the mouth. They were surprised to recognize him as the deputy head. Taking a closer look at him, they only became convinced that the man was completely out of his mind. The bandits couldn't believe that the guy had managed to defeat Sabo himself. They assumed that perhaps the man had overindulged a bit again, and that was why he had lost. Jinfri was sure that he hadn't been drinking but was simply overconfident. The man who approached loudly asked what was going on here. The robbers immediately recognized him as the leader. Several guys ran up to him and started telling him what had happened. Jinfri watched the man, who was apparently the guild leader, closely. The man was unhappy that someone had attacked them again. What surprised him most was that the guy even beat up Sabo. The leader admitted that his brothers were certainly not the best, but he didn't understand what they had done to the other guild that the guy had beaten them up. Jinfri immediately replied that he was not a member of anything. The chief was shocked that he had single-handedly taken out all of his guys. Jinfri had not expected such a reaction. The man only laughed cheerfully at such news. The leader immediately invited the guy to join them. Jinfri didn't know how to react to this and froze in shock. The chief added that under normal circumstances, he would have beaten the guy up and made him apologize. But since he even laid out Sabo, it would be a sin to let such a guy go. The man decided that Jinfri was so happy he couldn't even speak and suggested that they go to a bar to celebrate his entry. The guy asked if the man was joking. He said he was only here for the Cobalt bird feathers. He didn't understand who would want to join their third-rate scum guild. Jinfri said that since they had decided everything, let them give him the feathers and he would leave. The leader really didn't like his statements about his guild. Jinfri added that they only attack the weak because they are no match for the strong. The man immediately pulled out his weapon and swung it at the guy. The impact came from the side, breaking the stonework on the road. The head immediately stated that he was taking his words back. He noted that Jinfri was the first person to dodge his attack so deftly. He would not kill the boy, but he would beat him to death and then sell him into slavery. Jinfri realized that this was a crushing force, which meant that the man was definitely not a thief. The leader attacked again, but Jinfri managed to dodge. The guy didn't want to see his professional skills, so he needed to be dealt with quickly. Jinfri ducked to avoid being hit. The guy stood up abruptly and struck back at the leader. The man was shocked that Jinfri had just hit him. The attack was quite strong, but the guy attacked with the back of the dagger. Jinfri decided that the man understood everything. A moment later, the leader put away his weapon. Jinfri was surprised by this action. The guy decided that this meant that the chief's profession was reprisal. Reprisal is a passive skill of the fighter profession. The status of strength is doubled for 3 minutes, provided that the weapon is put away in the inventory. The bandits immediately began to encourage the boss. Jinfri realized that he was right about the man's profession after all. The leader tried to strike again, but Jinfri managed to dodge. The guy understood that if he got hit with this skill, he definitely wouldn't get out alive. Jinfri immediately struck at the vulnerable points. The guy's perception skill was activated. Everyone froze in surprise when the leader fell flat on the ground. The bandits didn't know what to do now. They assumed that maybe it was the new guy from the news. They did say that he was dressed in a basic potion maker's robe. He also has black hair and blue eyes. The boys suddenly realized that it was definitely him. Turning, Jinfri addressed the bandit standing nearby. The guys immediately jumped up and ran away. Jinfri didn't understand how they knew his name and why they decided to leave their leader. However, he decided that it didn't make any difference to him after all. He came for the feathers. Jinfri went to Sigrun Falls, the rank dungeon. There, he managed to defeat the dungeon boss Baphomet, for which he was awarded experience points. Jinfri headed towards that same fallen goddess. If he guesses her riddle, he will receive new cool things. He gave the feather to the goddess, assuring her that he would help her get back what she had lost. You don't even have to think to understand what the goddess was missing. Of course, many guessed that a cyclops eye needed to be inserted into the left eye socket. However, few noticed the gap in one of her wings. This is where the Cobalt bird's feather came in handy. The system notified that the guy had fulfilled the wish of the fallen goddess. The fallen goddess could not hold back her tears of gratitude at this gesture. Jinfri will finally get her second secret weapon. The guy noted that, of course, it was not easy to get it. Lucifer's heavenly halo. Jinfri thanked the goddess for it. The guy decided to try on his new purchase, noting that he now looked like some kind of dead person. Jinfri didn't want to stand out too much, and with it he would be considered a weirdo rather than a cool adventurer. Since he had obtained Lucifer's halo, it was time for the boy to head to the first S-rank dungeon. However, Jinfri had one problem. Rank dungeon, Angie Volcano. According to the guild rules, only a group of 7 people can enter here. Jinfri wasn't thrilled that he would now have to throw a party. In the game, after clearing an S-rank dungeon, the demon can be reborn again, but in a different part of the map. After completing the first dungeon, you are given the title. This is a direct ticket to the second region. Jinfri would like to go there as soon as possible. The guy heard people nearby discussing the Fire Mage group. Jinfri was very attracted by this information. What attracted him most was the figure of Frayne Asher, who was a magician. Jinfri's skill, Arver 1, mind reading, has been activated, Sire rank dungeon, but she was one fighter short. The guy noted that the halo immediately justified its cost. After talking, the man decided that it was time for them to go home today. Jinfri came up, apologized, and said he would like to join their team. Everyone immediately noticed the guy's halo. Even without the ability to read mimes, Jinfri understood that they were laughing at him. The guy said that they decided to stop looking for new members of the group and suggested looking for partners elsewhere. The system reported that he was feeling uneasy, worried about the injured team members who were currently in the hospital. Their partner was injured during the mission. Now they are one member short of entering the dungeon. Jinfri said he wanted to hear the group's leader's opinion first. The guy noted that the woman looked special. If she wanted to get into the S-rank dungeon so much, then why were they turning him down? Freyna said it was none of his business. She was worried about her father, who had gone into an S-rank dungeon a month ago. His group had never returned. Jinfri realized that the woman was also very worried. The guy was surprised when he learned that she was concerned about his health, given the halo above his head. He apologized, noting that he should have introduced himself right away. He said that his name was Jinfri and that he wanted to go to the S-rank dungeon as well. The woman noted that she had heard this name somewhere before, and the guy standing next to her said that this was the same Jinfri. They remembered that this was the guy they were talking about on the news, the new guy who killed 33 monsters at the baptism. The guy finally realized what was going on. He was in an adventurer's report. He didn't think he would stand out like that. Freyna felt like the guy was reading her mind. She wasn't one to believe the news, but this guy didn't seem like your average adventurer. It was as if he had already seen all the chaos of this world and knew what was what. It was a strange feeling. Freyna felt a thrill. She felt excitement and anticipation as she looked at the boy. The woman said that she would take him into the group, adding that if he gets in the way, then they will leave him there. The squad went to the Agni Volcano, an S-rank dungeon. In the end, Jinfri was put first, not the best position, especially in case of a collision with a monster, and that girl went behind. The man didn't trust the guy and was worried whether everything would be okay. Freyna assured that there was no need to worry. The main thing was to point the guy in the right direction. At worst, they use it as bait. The guy asked Jinfri if he was really that guy from the news. Jinfri hadn't listened to the news and had no idea what it was about, so he simply replied that he didn't. Arthur was confused and did not trust the guy. The man told him not to believe any rumors and said that Jinfri was not like that guy at all. He added that the halo didn't mean anything yet. The guy was already tired of it. His halo may have looked stupid, but it was actually very useful. Jinfri gained a second skill, sense magical power. He noticed a suspicious movement. Monsters from the top of the mountain came down here. The guy didn't believe it right away. Jinfri immediately ordered the store to put up protective barriers. The man froze, not understanding what was happening. The guy hurried him, saying that the eruption would begin soon. The man did not believe his words, looking at the guy with suspicion. Suddenly, the volcano roared, beginning its eruption. Jinfri reported that the collapse had begun and ordered action to be taken quickly. The man immediately reacted by using reflection magic. A protective dome appeared around the squad. Noticing that it was raining rocks, Jinfri knew they would have to wait until it died down. Freyna told everyone to stay put. Taking up her weapon, she used Meteor Breeze. By directing the wave towards the flying boulder, the woman smashed it into pieces. Jinfri realized that she possessed the element of fire, and she easily reflected all the stones. Suddenly, an earthquake began, and the path they were standing on began to collapse. Arthur, unable to restrain himself, flew into the resulting gorge. Jinfri managed to catch the guy in time, grabbing his hand. However, the stones continued to fall, dragging Jinfri down with them. Instead of solid ground, the boys landed on a downy bat. Jinfri admitted that they were very lucky to have fallen on her. As a bonus, the halo gave him a plus 100 luck. Noticing the bat looking at them suspiciously, the boy realized it was time for them to run away. Jinfri said that this monster absorbs all incoming blows and then reflects them back at the enemy and told the guy to be careful. Arthur just nodded, assuring that he knew it. Jinfri braced himself as he noticed the monster advancing on them. The bat screamed loudly, spreading its wings. Jinfri lunged at the boy, knocking him down and shielding him from the pile of rocks. He once again told Arthur to be more careful if he did not want to die here. The guy realized that if he hadn't been pushed away, he would have already turned into a pancake. But this monster wasn't even S-rank yet. Jinfri easily killed his opponent with one blow. Arthur froze in surprise, not believing his eyes. He was shocked that the guy managed to kill the monster with one attack. Freyna decided to look at her vital signs. The man asked her with concern what was going on. The woman assured that everything was fine and Arthur was alive. She kept thinking about how this strange guy had taken a risk to save Arthur. I felt the earthquake before everyone else. The guy said that they would also come down, but Freyna immediately and firmly answered no. The woman said that they still had a battle ahead of them, so there was no point in wasting their energy on that. Their task was to defeat the demons and bring peace back to the continent. Freyna suggested continuing to the summit and meeting them along the way. The woman said that Arthur was her brother. She personally trained him, so there was no point in worrying. Realizing that the leader of the squad was his older sister, Jinfri assumed that they had come here to look for their father. The guy said he moved on. Arthur asked where he was going, since the demon was on the top of the mountain. Jinfri decided that the guy wanted to die, since he decided to challenge a demon of such a level. The guy said that he personally was going to the monster's lair. Arthur felt conflicted and thought about his desire to become stronger. Jinfri offered him to come with him if he wanted to become stronger. The guys came to the gathering place of all evil spirits. Noticing the many phoenixes, Arthur was afraid that their levels were higher than those of the bat. Without further ado, Jinfri drew his weapon, preparing for battle. Swinging his blade, the guy began to chop down enemies left and right. Arthur understood that one-on-one was okay, but against the whole pack it would be difficult. The guy barely managed to dodge, noticing the approaching phoenix before it shot a stream of fire at him. Having taken out his weapon, the guy noted that the enemy was strong. The bird rushed forward again, preparing for a new attack. Arthur swapped his dagger for a bow and arrow, realizing that he couldn't win in close combat. He decided that it would be better to take a comfortable position further away and shoot. The arrow pierced the enemy's throat, and the bird flew to the ground. Arthur said that there was no need to bother with him, and that he definitely wouldn't lose one-on-one. The guy decided to see how Jinfri was doing and froze in shock. He sat calmly by the fire, and nearby lay the carcasses of his defeated enemies. While eating the meat that was given to him, Jinfri asked his partner if he was finished. Arthur was shocked that he had already dealt with all the monsters. Jinfri realized that something wasn't right with him. It seemed he had overeaten, but the meat didn't give any buffs. The guy immediately felt a stream of magical power heading here. As Jinfri finished chewing his meat, he was angry that this had happened now. Meanwhile, a level 45 salamander snuck up on the guys. They were surprised to realize that this was the main boss of the dungeon. As luck would have it, Jinfri developed stomach problems and his current stats decreased. Overcoming his nausea, Jinfri warned Arthur to be careful. This monster increased its stats by eating people. Those creatures were not even close to it. The salamander rushed into battle, trying to hit Arthur with its tail. Jinfri immediately asked with concern if everything was okay with the guy. Arthur said that this was too much. Jinfri promised that he would sort it out and told the guy to hide somewhere. The guy slyly asked if the monster also had stomach problems and said that nothing would fit in it anymore. Noticing the state of the salamander, Jinfri was afraid that she was going to vomit. And indeed, the next moment the monster vomited the contents of its stomach. Jinfri noticed human bones among this mess. Arthur looked at this picture in fear, unable to move. Jinfri suggested ending it quickly before he suffered the same fate as the monster. Arthur realized that these clothes and sword belonged to his father. The boy felt angry. He wanted to avenge his father and kill the salamander. Looking up at the monster with a look full of rage, Arthur promised that he would kill him. Having taken out his weapon, the guy immediately rushed forward. Jinfri tried to stop him, ordering him not to get into trouble. However, Arthur didn't even think of listening to him. The salamander lashed out with its tail, sending Arthur flying backwards, knocking him to the ground. The boy wiped his face, confidently declaring that he would kill the monster. Arthur tried to rush at the salamander again, but Jinfri managed to intercept him. He again, this time shouting, ordered the guy to wait. Arthur ordered him to be released, but Jinfri only explained that the salamander could not be defeated alone. The guy asked what would happen to Arthur's family if he died here. He tried to convey to Arthur that this was not an opponent he could handle one-on-one. The guy understood this, but it wouldn't make him back down. Arthur was angry with himself because he was powerless in this situation. After letting the guy go, Jinfri apologized for yelling at him. The guy assumed Arthur was a hunter. He noted that it was not the most suitable profession here and asked if he had anything in his inventory. Arthur only had arrows, heels, and wool from the downy bat, although he didn't understand where it came from. Jinfri explained that it was due to the hunter's hidden passive and suggested taking something useful with him. Arthur didn't know about any hidden passive, but Jinfri said they would talk about it later. He told the guy to listen carefully because he had a plan. He decided that they would finish off the monster together and it would be their secret. Jinfri warned them to follow the plan exactly. Since the salamander is not an easy opponent, they will have to resort to trickery. Jinfri told Arthur to buff him. The boy called upon the power that lived in his words and asked for help in defeating the salamander. Jinfri has been given a combat animation buff from Arthur. Muscle strength and speed have been increased by 30%, and then they had to use downy bat hair. Jinfri thanked him for the buff, since now the debuff on his stomach was gone, and told him to just follow the plan. Salamander and Jinfri rushed towards each other. Since the monster had a lot of HP, you need to damage it many times. Jinfri, thanks to the increased speed, was able to land multiple blows. The salamander was poisoned. but if you use the centipede's poison, you can stun the monster for a couple of seconds. And then Arthur managed to aim, hitting the salamander right in the head with an arrow. Thanks to this, it was possible to strike at her weak point, her forehead. Arthur was glad that the guy went with him. It would have been difficult for him to manage to hit from such a distance. The monster howled as the paralyzing poison wore off. The boys were happy that their plan worked. Salamander has activated rage mode. Her stats have increased by 30%. Arthur noted that the heat from the monster was now reaching even him. In this mode, all of the salamander's stats were increased. And here, Jinfri will find the wool of the downy bat useful. The boy jumped up, pointing his fur towards the monster. Jinfri was glad they were prepared. In this mode, the enemy's vulnerable spot changed. If before it was the forehead, now it is the front paws. Jinfri cut his leg, causing the mind's eye to activate. The guy was confident that victory was now in their pocket. The guys froze, watching the enemy's actions. Jinfri noted that the flames around the monster's body had weakened. The salamander was now on the verge of life and death. However, if it managed to absorb the fire surrounding it, the recovery process would start. The salamander's self-resurrection mode was activated. Its HP began to recover. Arthur noted that it would not be easy for them to defeat the monster. If the salamander has time to recover, they won't kill it in 5 minutes, so you need to act quickly. Arthur pulled the bowstring, promising Jinfri that everything would happen now. The boy gripped the dagger tighter in his hands, preparing for the moment. Jinfri couldn't wait to finish off this lizard. The boy kept waiting for the salamander to open its mouth. Jinfri swung his sword at his opponent. The salamander howled, opening its mouth wide, shouting to Arthur that they needed to act now. Jinfri threw a ball of wool. Grumbling that he knew it himself, the guy aimed at the monster's mouth. The arrow accurately pierced the tuft of wool that had been thrown up earlier, and she headed further, straight into the open mouth of the salamander. Arthur froze, watching the reaction carefully. He was afraid that their plan had not worked. Jinfri began the countdown, looking closely at the monster. As soon as the guy counted to 1, the salamander's head burst into pieces. Downy bat fur absorbs damage and then releases it, increasing its power threefold. The effect of the combat spirit buff ended. Thanks to it, the stomach debuff was removed. The monster's body fell like a stone to the ground in front of the boys. The salamander was defeated, for which they received experience. Arthur stood on the edge of the cliff, clutching his sword tightly to his chest. Jinfri removed the halo, not wanting to violate the guy's personal space. Seeing her brother, Freina immediately rushed to meet him. Arthur immediately told everyone that he had bad news. Freina immediately noticed her father's sword. Arthur reported that he was spat out by a salamander. Freina immediately rushed to hug her brother, barely holding back her tears. She insisted that it wasn't the guy's fault and that he had tried hard. Arthur responded by saying that it was all thanks to Jinfri. Freina turned a surprised look to the guy. Jinfri ignored their conversation as he moved rocks. The other guys realized almost immediately what exactly he was doing. They rushed to the guy, offering to help. Freina realized that they were making a grave for their father. Having thrust the sword into the grave she had created, she wished her father to rest in peace. The brother and sister bowed at the tombstone for a final prayer. The rest of the squad followed their example. Only Jinfri remained standing aside. Looking at Arthur and Freina, the guy remembered himself and his sister. I remembered the moment when my tearful mother came into the house to tell me about my father. The guy was pulled out of his thoughts by Freina's voice, who thanked him for his father and for Arthur. Jinfri brushed it off, saying he had done nothing out of the ordinary. He added that Arthur was capable of defending himself. The guy immediately stated that he understood the level of his skills. If it weren't for Jinfri, he wouldn't be here. He admitted that the guy turned out to be much stronger than they said. The man listened with his mouth wide open, not believing what he heard. Jinfri said the main problem now is at the top of the mountain. The creature that rules the creatures on this continent, the steel bear. Freina declared that she would grind this creature into dust. The team confidently headed towards the top of the mountain. Confidently fighting off the interfering monsters, they continued on their way. Eventually, they managed to reach the top of Mount Agni. The guy asked where this demon was. Suddenly, the volcano began to erupt, spitting out a large stream of water. Everyone froze, watching what was happening in surprise. A level 50 steel bear appeared in front of them. Its specialty was fire waves. The bear roared, causing everyone to cover their ears from his scream. His voice was incredibly loud. Freina noted that the enemy was very strong. The bear decided that these pathetic little people had come to die. Jinfri ordered everyone to retreat, announcing that his first attack would be fire breath. Freina told everyone to listen to Jinfri and retreat to a safe distance. Noticing that the guy himself had not moved, the woman was surprised. She did not understand what he was doing and told him to come here. Jinfri just smirked, continuing to stand in his place. The bear attacked, spewing a stream of fire. The man hurried to make a shield, surprised that the flames had reached even here. Arthur excitedly called out to Jinfri, who remained near the monster. The bear laughed because he was the only one who didn't manage to escape. The temperature was too high, so he was sure that not a speck of dust would remain of the guy. The squad couldn't believe that Jinfri had died like that. However, when the smoke from the attack began to clear, the silhouette of a guy appeared through it. The monster was incredibly surprised that Jinfri survived. Thanks to the phoenix meat he ate, the guy's fire protection worked. Jinfri said he wasn't hot at all. Arthur was very glad that the boy was okay. Freyna was surprised that Jinfri was unharmed. Only fire resistance could have avoided such a blow. Arthur now understood why the guy had eaten so much meat back then. Eating 50 phoenix meat would grant her fire resistance for 7 minutes. This did not completely protect Jinfri, but it did minimize damage. Now the guy was on the verge of death, which meant he could use divine speed. The bear noted that he was not as simple as he was for a human. He had not had such fun for a long time. Steel Bear began to use fire waves. The boys were amazed, not expecting such heat. Due to the fire waves, the burn status was imposed. Because of this, HP will decrease every second. Freyna told him to hide behind a rock, warning that if the heat touched their armor, they would take additional damage. They had everything they needed to survive in the volcanic zone. However, it was not enough to defeat the demon. Arthur didn't understand why Jinfri was so calm. The guy was prepared for this. Thanks to the fire resistance status, the damage from the burn status was weakened. The bear noted that he was different from other people. Did he really think he could withstand the damage from the fire? He thought the guy was very arrogant and wanted to teach him a lesson. The guys noted that the monster sank into the lava, which meant that it looked like something was about to start. Jinfri tightened his grip on the dagger, preparing to attack. The main thing is to watch the bear's movements. The monster suddenly jumped out of the lava and rushed forward. Jinfri immediately realized that this was a special attack. The guys were shocked that the shockwave reached them too. Freyna noted that the monster was incredibly fast. The bear noted that such an attack could be counterattacked profitably. This little man interested him very much. The bear admitted that he was already bored with this and wanted to shake things up a bit. The monster wondered if the man would be able to repel this attack. Freyna realized that the monster's voice was coming from underground. Arthur didn't understand what was happening and was very surprised to notice that Jinfri had closed his eyes. The monster suddenly jumped out from under the ground, attacking from behind. Jinfri's magic power detection kicked in, allowing him to dodge in time. All the guys were shocked by what was happening. Lucifelia's Anim allowed one to detect magical power at a distance of 5 kilometers from the wearer. The monster noted that the guy was quick-witted. Jinfri countered that it wasn't that, he just knew all his moves. The bear told him not to get cocky, deciding that the guy was just lucky. He noted that luck could not last forever. Jinfri could defend himself further, but the monster promised that he would not give him time to counterattack. The guy just told him to start and stop talking. With the power detection skills, he could find out where the monster was, and with the divine speed, he could counterattack. Jinfri forced himself to remember everything. He had played this game so many times before. Arthur didn't expect the monster to attack from below. The bear froze, not understanding where the guy had disappeared to. Raising its head, the monster noticed Jinfri, who decided to attack from above. The guy flew down, cutting the bear with a dagger from the neck to the navel. Jinfri grinned slyly, reminding him that someone had said they wouldn't let him counterattack. Arthur was amazed by the guy's actions and thought it was incredibly cool. The bear noted that it was only one attack, and it was too early for the guy to get cocky. He promised that he would not let him get in his way. Jinfri was surprised because he had never heard this line before. Meanwhile, the monster dived into the lava again. Jinfri decided that now was not the time to think and ordered himself to pull himself together. The monster tried to strike again, but the guy managed to react. Jinfri managed to land a critical hit. Her inner instinct kicked in. The monster didn't understand how the guy guessed where he would hit from. Jinfri was glad he had an inner sense. The steel bear was inflicted with the poisoned status. The monster was very surprised to learn that he had been poisoned. Jinfri apologized and said that he was not the only one who knew that the bear had no resistance to poisons. He saw nothing wrong with taking advantage of an opponent's weakness. The man noted that the guy was very strong. Even in large squads, many are afraid to fight against demons, but Jinfri stood with such pride. The boy warned the monster that he needed to hurry. A little more, and he won't be able to attack. Thanks to the effect of the poison, he will soon be gone. The monster warned the boy not to tempt his fate. Arthur was told to retreat or he would take too much damage from the fire. Freyna ordered everyone to retreat to a safer place. Arthur didn't understand why he couldn't fight alongside Jinfri. The steel bear struck again, breathing out a stream of fire. When the smoke cleared, Jinfri continued to stand as if nothing had happened. He knew that breathing fire was just the beginning. The enemy's actions were different from the game now. The monster was curious about what force the guy had used to detect his attack last time. Jinfri wondered if it was too late to think about this. The bear declared that this knowledge would no longer help him. The guy will hardly cope if they attack at the same time. Jinfri froze in surprise, not expecting such a turn of events. The steel bear split into 3 full-fledged monsters. The guy was scared because this definitely wasn't in the game. However, Jinfri noted that although their numbers have increased, their actions have not changed. Even though he knows the next attack, it will be difficult to repel it. The monster said that the guy would die first. Due to the increased speed, Jinfri was now on the verge of life and death. One more attack and he was dead. The whole situation was very explosive. The monster thanked him for entertaining him and promised that his friends would soon follow the boy. The bear rushed forward to deliver the finishing blow.